Welcome back to the Chelsweets kitchen. Today we're going to be making a really awesome rainbow cake. So I've made a bunch of rainbow cake layers, some rainbow chocolate ganache, and I'm also going to be adding some really great lollipops to the top. So this is going to be a super over-the-top cake, but it should be a lot of fun to decorate. So first let's assemble this cake and then we can get going on the decorations. So just like always, we're going to start with a little bit of buttercream on our base. And we're going to be stacking our cake layers in color order. So we're going to go ahead and start with red on the base, and then we'll work our way up. So we're going to apply a thin layer of buttercream here. And you can add however much frosting you prefer. The most important thing is just that you have a level layer of frosting. So we're going to go ahead and work this around. And once we think we have it pretty evenly spread, I'm going to go ahead and do a little spin with my offset spatula and just smooth it out. So that looks good. We're going to go next with our orange layer. And we're going to repeat this process until we've stacked all of our cake layers. And just to remind you, the color order is Roy Giveby, which is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. So always keep that in mind when you're doing anything rainbow related. So next is our yellow layer. And as we're doing this, it's great to make sure that your cake layers are nice and lined up. So when I decorate my cakes, I always like to freeze my cakes. And I found that really helps the cake layers stay in place and make it a sturdier stack as I assemble. I highly recommend thoroughly chilling your cake layers before you frost. As you can see, this is going to be a really tall cake. If you don't want your cake to be this tall, you could definitely make thinner cake layers or wider cake layers. The options are limitless. I'm using 7-inch cake rounds here, and I actually made the layers pretty thin, but it's still going to be a very tall cake just because there are so many layers. So our last cake layer is going to be our violet cake layer, or our purple cake layer, and I always like to flip it upside down, and that's just because you know that the bottom of the cake layer is always perfectly flat since it baked against the side of the pan, and that way it makes it a lot easier to get nice sharp edges as you frost. So I'm going to go ahead and just press down to make sure that our cake layers are nice and together. I'm also just going to do a quick spin to make sure everything is straight. Looks good. If you also want to do another test, you can always set your cake bench straight and kind of push in and just make sure that all your layers are nicely lined up. So that looks pretty good, so I think we're going to go ahead now and apply our crumb coat. So I always like to add a lot of frosting to the top of my cake and then work my way down. I'm just going to go ahead, and I'm not pushing too hard here because we don't want our stack to fall over. If you're having trouble with your cake layer staying vertically, you can always insert a dowel in this step. So I'm going to go ahead now and just gently start to work this frosting around. If you want to see a full tutorial on how to perfectly frost a cake with smooth sides, you can always check out my Baking Basics playlist. I have a full tutorial. It's super in-depth and shows you every trick that I use, and I'll include the link for that above. So the whole point of a crumb coat is to trap in all of your crumbs and then to chill your cake so that you can get a really smooth second layer of frosting when you apply it. So we're almost done here smoothing our frosting with our offset spatula. I always like to take my crumb coat one step further. At this point, I like to use my bench scraper to go ahead and just scrape off any excess buttercream. And this just makes it easier to get a really great second layer of frosting. So I recommend, if you have a bench scraper, doing this step. It'll just make your life easier down the road. So once you've smoothed the sides, we're going to go ahead and smooth the top just by gently dragging in towards the center. We then are going to pop this into the freezer for about 5 minutes to let our crumb coat chill. So now that our crumb coat is nice and firm to the touch, we're going to go ahead and add our second layer of frosting. So we're going to use the same techniques as before, where we spread a nice layer of frosting all around the cake and then we smooth with our bench scraper. So now that our cake is fully frosted, we're going to go ahead and pop it in the freezer for another 5 minutes to let this second coat of frosting chill fully before we add our chocolate ganache. We're going to be adding on our 6 colored rainbow drips. So we want to divide the top of our cake into 6 equal sections. So in order to do this, I like to use a ruler and just mark out where the center is. So this is just a little over 7 inches across. And this doesn't have to be perfect, but it just will help you get nice equal looking sections. So we know the center of our cake now. So now I'm just going to go ahead and make some lines. So now that we have our cake top divided, we're going to go ahead and add on our colored drips. I'm going to start with my red white chocolate ganache, and I'm going to add my drips in the same color that we stacked our cake layers. If you want to see a full tutorial on how to add white chocolate ganache drips to a cake, you can click the link above. Now that all of our drips are on, it's time to add all of our lollipops onto our cake. So we're going to leave this one elevated slightly because we're going to be filling in with other lollipops. So I have different colors for each of our different drips, and I'm going to go ahead and insert these ones further into the cake. We're going to put these in at varying heights and angles. We then are going to go ahead and add in some other fun little lollipops. We now are going to add on a few more colorful candies into each colored section. And just like that, our over-the-top rainbow cake is complete. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like and subscribe button below. If you want to see more of my cakes, you can follow me on Instagram at Chelsweets. And if you want the cake recipe and buttercream and white chocolate ganache strips that we used today, you can visit Chelsweets.com. I'll also include the links below. So I guess there's nothing left to do now but cut into this cake.